Hello everybody, it's Erik, and I am going to continue on from an earlier tutorial I did about just a basic quick character setup by expanding that with a pro-only feature, Inverse Kinematics. And what Inverse Kinematics allows you to do is move the entire model from the base, but the feet would stay planted or other parts would stay planted. Usually it's the feet, or you can grab what's called a target bone and lift the foot and the knee will automatically bend to travel along with it. So you'll see how it works if you don't already know as we go along. So I'm going to start as I did before by just creating a simple character. We're only going to focus on the feet, so I'm not going to put in any head, arms, or legs. What I'm going to do is just get my shape tool, get my oval tool. I've chosen a color that will show bones pretty clearly for you, this light brown. Choose your own. And I'll draw that. There's my hips, or my base body. And now I'm going to switch to the rectangle tool. And I'm going to click and drag down to make a leg. And then I'll give them a foot. And then I can just select both of these, copy, paste, move them over here, and I can even then flip that. There we go. Move it over a little bit more. Oops. Too much. All right, let's move that in. Let's move that in. All right, that's close enough. So now I need to put in our skeleton, our rig. So I'm going to go and I'm going to put in a bone layer. I'm going to drag this vector layer into the bone layer. There, now it can be controlled by the bones. And get my add bone tool, and I'll put in a bone to control the base. And with that selected, I'm going to go ahead and draw my hip bone down. That makes it a child of the bone that was already selected. So this hip is a child of the base, and with the hip still selected, I'm going to draw the shin, which is a child of the hip now, and then I'm going to draw the foot. And with a leg like this, you really do want those bones to be connected tip to base, tip to base. You're going to get a much better result. And I'm going to then draw the other leg. And so I need to make sure that this base is selected again so that this new hip is parented to it. Come halfway down, out, and down, and out through the foot. And now let's take a look at the bone strength on this. Get my bone strength tool. I'm going to go ahead and cut this bone strength way back for these, just so it holds these shapes in. I'm not going to worry much about those around this body bone. I'm not going to do that. It takes too much control over the legs, so I'm just going to leave it about like that. Let's get the manipulates bone tool and see what happens. Not too bad, not too much pulling, but you'll notice the knee doesn't bend. I drew in the bones first before putting in knees so I could see where I needed to put the points for the knees. As you learned in my earlier tutorial, I hope, that knee won't bend if there are no points for it to bend around. So now that I can see where the joint is, I'll just get my add points tool and put a point on both sides of that knee, and same over here. Back to my bone layer. There we go. Knee bend. All right, so we've got our base model set up. That's a nice refresher for you, I hope. And I'm going to do the magic now. Let's put in the target bones that will create this inverse kinematics field, this inverse kinematics chain. And remember, this is a pro-only feature. If you're on debut, it won't work. So I am going to first hit escape so no bones are selected. Why did I do that? Because the target bones should not have anything parented to them, and they should not be parented to anything. So nothing should be selected when I create them. I'm going to go ahead and click about where the ankle is and drag out. And I'm going to do the same, but first I'm going to deselect that bone so it doesn't create a chain, doesn't create a parent thing. Drag that out. let's just real quickly check our parenting. See, there are no parent arrows coming off those two target bones I just created. That's what I want. I'm also going to go into bone strength again, and I'm going to set these to 0. Always look up in this bone strength in your control bar and make sure it's gone to 0 and not 0.01. It's easy to accidentally leave a tiny bit of strength on. 0 is best. Okay, so I've got both set to 0. Next thing I need to do is name them. It's easier to remember what bones are your target bones when you go to set them if you've named them. I could try and remember it's B8, but wouldn't it be easier if I just call it target left and come over to this one, select it, and call it target right. Okay, so now I'm going to create a targeting. I'm going to select the shin bone. I'm going to go into bone constraints. I'm going to find the target section halfway down. I'm going to click and I'm going to set that shin to target left. And when I did that, let me zoom all the way in. You can see this little tiny circle that looks a bit like a bullseye. That's showing your target. And I'm going to do the same with this shin. I'm going to go to target. I'm going to choose target right. And there's my little target bullseye again. So let's check this out, and then I'll talk about a few things. Get my manipulate bones tool. Now I can just grab that base bone, drag down, and see those legs are bending and moving. Now there's several problems. 1, look at how the feet are rotating with everything. 2, look at how they pull away from the targets really the minute you bring it a little bit too far up. Let's fix all of that. And I'll show you one other thing. You really want these target bones as accurately placed as possible. Watch what happens when I go to frame 1. I think I did it right. See? Nothing happens when I go to frame 1. It looks exactly the same. That's what you want. I've seen people do this. They set their target bones like down here. Now you can really see that bullseye. But what happens when I go to frame 1? Notice that the shin bones are trying to get to that target, and they can't quite do it. But when you go from frame 0 to frame 1, suddenly your model changes up. You don't want that. You want to get that there, and you just see when you drag it towards that point, it actually clicks into place. So get that as exactly as possible, and one way to know if you've done it right is to go out to frame 1 and look and see if there's any shifting in the way the bones are positioning. So that's all good. So now we've got our target bones properly placed and set up. Let's fix those feet first. What we need to do, select that foot bone, back to bone constraints, and there's a checkbox for independent angle. I'm going to click that. I'm going to select the other foot and do the same. And now you're seeing a little bit of foot movement, but that's bone strength. They're not rotating. I would normally point bind these things, but that's not what this is about, and this is a fast, easy way to get started. So that's fix the feet, and one thing you need to know about that is in frame 0, when something's set to an independent angle, you can no longer rotate it with the manipulate bones tool to test. But don't worry, when you go out to animate, it'll all be fine. So get rid of that stuff I just did. And the second thing we need to do is make sure those legs have some stretch to them, which is all part of animation. Squash and stretch, exaggeration. I am going to select all 4 leg bones at once, go to bone constraints, and set their maximum IK stretching, which is right here, about a quarter of the way down. I'm going to set it to 2. That's a lot of stretching, but it's better to have too much than not enough, because you saw how things were pulling away. You don't have to use all that stretching, but it's good to have. So let's see what happens now. See, we've still got the bend. But now when I pull up, it doesn't pull away. Let me zoom out so you can see. Now once it gets beyond double height on those bones, now it pulls away. But that gives you a lot of freedom. And if you try and go more subtle with it, you're going to find it pulls away far too early for you. So you don't have to use it all, but give yourself plenty of stretch. So the last thing to talk about is this. When I'm moving this around, both knees are bending off to the right-hand side. Now one's coming in and one's going. Now they're both actually coming in. And you see they're changing which way they're bending depending on where I am. This won't happen when you're actually animating. They're always going to be bending in the same direction no matter what you do when you're actually animating. I'm not sure why there's a difference between frame 0 and this, but there is. So if you want these knees to bend out towards the toes of this character, you need to do some little hinting in your rig setup to let it know which way you want these knees to bend by default. Now there's a way to change the direction the knee is bending during animation. That's more advanced. Won't get into it right now, but just know that you're not stuck. However, there's a way to say, I want my knees to always point outward away from the body. And that is to just come in a little closer so we can see. Just put a slight angle on that knee in the direction we want it to bend. And so let me make sure I've got the target reapplied. Click, put it back. Target reapplied. And let me go to frame 1, frame 0, frame 1, frame 0, frame 1. I'm not seeing any popping, so that's what I want. I got my target bones back in the right place. And from here, I'm out at what, frame 12? Now both knees are bending in the direction I want them to. And that is how you set up your IK rig. So you can do this, or you can just lift and move either one of the target bones and it brings the whole leg with it. Like I said, you can do the toe in any way you want. So this is great for doing walks, dances, anything that involves you wanting to keep the feet pretty still. I hope you found this useful. Questions in the comment section, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.